You check your bank account. It looks fine. Not amazing. Not scary. Just fine. You have a steady paycheck. You have a comfortable apartment or a paid down mortgage. You can afford dinner out most weekends. This feels like success. But the real answer is far stranger. This exact feeling, the quiet comfort of being fine, is the single biggest reason most people never become wealthy. Think about that for a second. Not debt, not a lack of income, comfort. Wealth doesn't usually get destroyed by disaster. It gets quietly dissolved by satisfaction. And once you see how this trap works, you'll notice it everywhere. In your own spending, in your own career choices, in the quiet decision to stop reaching. Here's the strange part. Poverty forces movement. When you don't have enough, every day reminds you of the gap between where you are and where you need to be. That pressure, uncomfortable as it is, pushes people to change jobs, learn new skills, take risks, start businesses. But once you cross into enough, something shifts. The discomfort disappears. And discomfort, it turns out, was doing most of the work. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. You get a raise, and for a few weeks you feel richer. Then your brain quietly resets your baseline. The new salary becomes the new normal. You stop noticing it. This isn't a flaw in your willpower. It's a built-in feature of how human perception works. Your brain is wired to notice change, not levels. So a stable income, no matter how large, eventually feels exactly like no income at all, just the background hum of your life. This is why so many people plateau. Not because they lack ambition, because comfort quietly erases the signal that used to drive them forward. Let's go back a little further, because this pattern shows up long before modern paychecks. In the late 1700s, a French philosopher named Denis Diderot received a beautiful new robe as a gift. It was elegant, far nicer than anything else he owned. He loved it, but within weeks, he looked around his study and felt embarrassed. His old desk looked shabby next to the robe. His chairs looked worn. His bookshelves looked cheap, so he replaced them, one by one, until he had spent far more than he could comfortably afford, all triggered by a single gift that was supposed to make him feel good. Modern researchers named this pattern after him, the Diderot effect. One upgrade creates a psychological gap between your new item and everything around it. So you buy again to close the gap. And again. Sound familiar? Now here's the mirror to today. A new phone makes your case look outdated. A nicer apartment makes your old furniture look wrong. A better car makes your driveway look incomplete. None of these purchases are irrational in isolation. But together, they form a spending pattern that keeps pace exactly with your income, which means your wealth never actually grows. It just gets redecorated. This is the middle-class trap in its purest form. Rising income, rising comfort, rising spending, same net worth, year after year, dressed up in nicer clothes. But here's where it gets counterintuitive. You'd expect the wealthiest people to feel this pull the hardest. More money, more temptation, right? Actual research and actual case studies say the opposite. Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart, built one of the largest retail fortunes in history. And for most of his life, he drove an old pickup truck. Not for show. Not as a branding stunt. He simply never let comfort recalibrate his baseline. Reporters who visited him were often stunned that the richest man in America lived like someone solidly middle class. That wasn't frugality as a personality quirk. It was a deliberate refusal to let his spending rise every time his income did. Compare that to the far more common pattern. A person earns more, buys a bigger home, upgrades the car, joins a nicer gym, and suddenly needs that higher income just to maintain a lifestyle that used to feel like a luxury. Their expenses don't just track their income, they stalk it, one step behind, always closing the distance. Warren Buffett tells a similar story. He still lives in a house he bought in 1958, decades before Berkshire Hathaway made him one of the richest people alive. Why? Because comfort was never his benchmark. Compounding was. Every dollar not spent chasing a lifestyle upgrade was a dollar that could keep growing, quietly, invisibly, for decades. The house never changed, the portfolio did. Here's the part that stings a little. If comfort is what stalls people, then feeling good about your finances might actually be a warning sign, not a reward. If your current lifestyle feels effortless and pleasant, ask yourself honestly, is that because your money is working incredibly hard for you, or because you've simply stopped asking it to? This is not an argument for suffering. Nobody builds wealth by being miserable on purpose. But there's a real difference between contentment and complacency. Contentment says, I appreciate what I have. Complacency says, I've stopped checking whether this is actually working. Let's talk about what breaks the trap, because it isn't willpower. Willpower fades, systems don't. The households that quietly build wealth inside a normal income tend to share one specific habit. They automate the gap between income and spending before comfort has a chance to expand into it. The moment a raise arrives, the increase gets redirected, automatically, into savings or investments before it ever touches the checking account. The lifestyle stays exactly the same. Only the number in the background changes. This sounds almost too simple to matter. But remember what we said earlier. Your brain adapts to levels, not raw numbers. If the money never sits in your spendable account, your brain never adapts to having it. There's no new baseline to reset. The Diderot effect never gets triggered, because the new robe, so to speak, never entered the house. Businesses understand this dynamic better than almost anyone, which is exactly why so much of modern marketing is engineered around manufacturing small gaps in your comfort. A gap between your kitchen and someone else's kitchen. A gap between your car and a slightly newer model. A gap between your current life and an aspirational version shown to you 40 times a day on a screen. None of this is accidental. Comfort is profitable, right up until the exact moment it gets disturbed, and an entire industry exists to disturb it, gently, constantly, one upgrade at a time. Once you see this, you can't unsee it. Every advertisement is essentially whispering the same sentence Diderot's robe whispered to him. Everything else you own now looks a little wrong. So, what does escaping the trap actually look like in practice? It rarely looks dramatic. It looks like keeping your car 2 years longer than your income would allow. It looks like a raise that never changes your grocery bill. It looks like living in a version of your life that would look, to an outside observer, almost identical to 5 years ago, while your net worth quietly doubles in the background. It is deeply unglamorous. It photographs terribly. Nobody posts a picture of an unchanged living room and calls it a financial milestone, but it is, functionally, one of the most reliable ones there is. There's a question worth sitting with here. If your income doubled tomorrow, what would actually change? For most people, the honest answer is almost everything. Bigger home, newer car. Nicer vacations. A whole new comfortable baseline, waiting to quietly absorb the gain the same way it absorbed the last one. And if that's the honest answer, then the raise was never really going to make you wealthier. It was only ever going to make you comfortable at a slightly higher altitude. This is the quiet, unremarkable machinery underneath most financial stagnation. Not a single bad decision, not a single moment of failure. Just comfort, compounding, one small upgrade at a time, until an entire life is built exactly at the edge of what income allows, with nothing left over to actually grow. There's a term economists use for this: lifestyle inflation. It sounds harmless, like a footnote in a textbook, but run the math and the footnote becomes a verdict. A household earning more every year, spending in near-perfect lockstep with that increase, can go an entire working life without meaningfully growing its net worth. Not because the income was too low, because the gap, the distance between what came in and what stayed, never had room to exist. Compounding needs that gap the way a fire needs oxygen. Without it, nothing accumulates, no matter how bright the paycheck looks. Consider two people earning the exact same salary over 20 years. One upgrades everything the moment their income allows it. The other keeps expenses roughly frozen and redirects each increase into investments. On paper, they look nearly identical. Similar homes, similar cars, similar dinners out. But by year 20, their financial realities have diverged so completely they might as well belong to different economic classes. Same income the entire time, completely different outcomes. The only variable that moved was the gap. This is why net worth is such a strange, deceptive number to hide behind. Two people can look equally successful, drive similar cars, live on similar streets, and stand on opposite sides of financial security. Income tells you what someone earns. It tells you almost nothing about what they keep. And what you keep, not what you make, is the number that actually compounds. You check your bank account again. It still looks fine. Not amazing, not scary, just fine. But now you notice something you didn't before. Fine was never the finish line. Fine was the trap, dressed up as safety, quietly asking you to stop.